Koreatown is not just another one of LA's neighborhoods. It's an entire world unto itself. Like the city of Seoul has been torn from its foundations, shrunk down and wedged into an area between Windsor Square and Westlake, south of the 101 freeway. There are more than 100,000 people living in just 2.7 square miles, making it one of the most densely populated areas in LA County. There are spas, salons, theaters, karaoke bars, clothing stores and shopping centers, endless nightlife, and of course, restaurants. There are lots and lots of restaurants. From burgers to barbecue to chicken wings, if you want it, Koreatown likely has it. I met up with Matthew Kang, a longtime friend who's the editor of Eater Los Angeles. He took me to one of his current favorite spots, a Korean barbecue place called Yangmani that specializes in intestines and stomach. You know, the good parts.
Yeah, man, where are we? Where have you brought me?
We are at a restaurant called Yangmani in Koreatown. And it is, I think it's one of the most popular Korean barbecue restaurants with the young kids, you know, with like the Koreans that grew up in LA or live in K-Town. Like this is their spot.
And the kids like to eat
They like the guts.
intestines? Is
Yes,
that true?
the innards. We've eaten enough short rib and brisket, like not that they're not worthy of being eaten,
Yeah.
but I think the kids are bored of that and they want to go to the guts now. They want to go to the intestines, the tripes, the stomachs.
So it's not like a trend. I mean, people have been eating this, I assume, for a long time. But recently, it's like popular with the younger set.
When the format became popularized in the US, you know, there's a lot of really affordable, reasonably priced meat here, so it proliferated and became essentially the most popular Korean restaurant concept, not just in Los Angeles, but throughout the entire country.
And is that different than in Korea?
I mean, now in modern Korea, like obviously Korean barbecue is incredibly popular because the country is developed. I mean, it's an economic powerhouse. It's on every other block, and it's pretty affordable now. Not necessarily very good, but it's affordable.
Okay.
But if you were to talk to like my parents' generation or even my grandfather's generation, no way. Like this was like a very special occasion meal. It's like going to a steakhouse.
But like, talk to me about the spread in Korean food. Just because it feels so like luxurious. I don't know. Is it like a cultural thing, or is that like what? Why is it that way?
Well, I think you're right in that actually a lot of Korean cooking at its highest levels was inspired by how the royalty ate, and there are actually very strict menus and designs that, and even like certain dishes were only used for certain ingredients in Korean, the Korean palaces, and that has now trickled down to an everyday experience where if you are eating Korean food, it's not proper, it doesn't feel like Korean food unless there's like at least a dozen dishes on the table. That's the essence of Korean food. It's not like one thing, it's not discrete, it's not one little dish and that's yours, or that's yours, but rather everything is ours. It's sort of a reflection of the Korean and also greater East Asian mentality of communalness, right? It's like, I'm not an individual, I'm part of this unit. And like, that's why you're gonna eat from that, I'm gonna eat from that. It's not like I don't do this, you know, like this.
Put it on your plate.
No, you just, that soup right there, this kongbiji, like, we're both gonna put our spoon in there. Yeah.
Why do you think the intestines are so popular right now with young people?
Actually, in Korea, it was really popular, long time ago. But in LA, it's a little, not familiar thing to young age people. But there's all cultures mixing in Koreatown. So some young generation really trying to new food. And then they taste it and it's good, so they keep coming.
Just want to look at these little guys though.
This is cool because they actually kind of sort of come out pre-grilled. But yeah, you can ask her about that because a lot of restaurants don't do that. at other Korean barbecue places, if you get this dish, it's fully uncooked, right?
Okay.
But what they do is they part cook it. It
Right.
takes a super long time. So it's not ready to eat now, but it will be quickly because
Right.
it's
Okay. It's all kind of moving this way.
yeah.
And it's really hot. No, it's good. No, it's great. Just bathe me in meat smoke. So what's it like watching Korean, particularly Korean food, really like blow up in food media, in media everywhere? What's that like to watch that? From like 2007 where you are now to watch sort of like the explosion.
To see Korean food as sort of like a big deal now, like mainstream, or like something that people really care about, whether it's on the internet, like with mukbang or with YouTube or
chefs.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's great because ultimately, I think Korean people haven't let other people speak for the cuisine, right? In the sense that there's no Rick Bayless of Korean food, right?
Not yet.
Not yet, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Koreans would stand for that, right?
And by
so
that you mean, what do you mean by that?
what I mean is a cultural outsider. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not making a judgment on Rick Bayless or somebody that's
okay,
not
you can.
Korean. I just think that Koreans were the ones that opened the restaurants, that served the food, that wrote the recipes, that did the YouTube shows, and so we can represent our own food. And I think that's why it's so strong, and why it's sort of more focused on great dishes and great ingredients versus like, I'm gonna fusionize this.
Matthew Kang. Love you, man.
Love you too.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. And I've really enjoyed this more than I thought I would. So thank you for bringing me here.
Thanks for having me.
When I was in high school, I wanted to be an actor. And so my next guest made a huge impression on me growing up and was, in many ways, one of the great trailblazers of that time. Margaret Cho, an actor, comedian, and musician, starred in the first primetime sitcom that focused on an Asian American family, All American Girl.
Now that the oral part of the exam is over, shall we move on to the obstacle course?
I asked Cho to join me at The Prince on 7th Street, a bar and restaurant from the 1940s that absolutely oozes old Hollywood elegance. Movies like Chinatown filmed there, as well as TV shows like Mad Men and New Girl. It also happens to have a pretty comprehensive menu of Korean bar food. Cho and I chatted about her childhood in Northern California while snacking on some comfort foods like rice cakes and corn cheese.
So like when you were a kid, how much did you identify with your Koreanness?
I think that there was a sense of like, I really love the food, but then I hated taking the food to school. So I hated like having like squid. I was able to eat squid when I was a kid. For some reason, there was not a problem. I developed an allergy probably around 12 or 13, but when I was younger,
From kids making fun of you, you developed an allergy?
something. I think it was like trauma related. I think it had something to do with going to Korea at 12 with my family, and there was something going on with like suddenly I couldn't eat it anymore, and as we were presented with it so much, so it was kind of like I don't know, but it was it was sort of traumatic to have like Korean food in your lunchbox when other kids had like they would have a real Coke like wrapped in foil, or this was before Lunchables, so you wouldn't have that, but you would have fruit roll-ups.
You'd have like a Twinkie or something.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
that.
I was just amazed
cupcake or something.
that people would have Hostess cupcakes or Twinkies in their lunchbox. That was just, to me, so decadent.
And so what did you have?
I would have like, the dried squid that you would put on the like the range, and you would like actually like sort of burn it.
Oh wow.
And so it was like kind of like a little bit blackened, and then you would eat that, which is very delicious, very salty. And I'm sure there was some kind of a Spam sandwich in there, or some sort of Spam musubi type of thing. Then my mother was trying to make sort of like American things, so she would make me like a sandwich with avocado and peanut butter, which I think is very strange.
How did that alienation or like feeling singled out in that way, like?
I think like when you, like Asian Americans, like the first thing that we do to separate ourselves from our foreign parents is make fun of their accents.
Right.
And make fun of the things that they would say and their concerns. You know, and they grew up in such a different way. They'd been through wars, most of them. And they were in this new country that was very scary, and they didn't have all of their support system around them, so they were just sort of like kind of maintaining with just a few other family members around them and trying to make do. And then you had these like kids who were growing up without any kind of real hardship. You know, the hardship for us was like not fitting in.
Right.
You know, and
Hi. Thank you.
Ooh,
Those are good.
thank you.
Oh, these are the rice cakes. Great.
Tteokbokki. This is a food that you would definitely get. Your relatives would make for kids. This
Yeah.
is like a kid's food.
Tell me about this dish and like what, if any, associations you have with rice cakes and.
I just remember that sometimes like things were so spicy that my mom would make a little dish of 7-Up, and she would rinse things in it, like kimchi. She would rinse the pepper off it to make you eat it.
In 7-Up.
In 7-Up. That's what I remember. That 7-Up was seemed as a kind of like a 7-Up was a weird neutralizer of like spicy things. So they would use that in it and
A cleansing agent.
to make kids want to eat it.
That's amazing.
But I think this is very good.
Yeah,
I
love
think it's
rice
got a
cakes.
very childhood comforting quality.
I mean, I imagine Asian parents don't do well generally with like rebellion. Like
No.
how were yours?
They were really upset. I mean, but also they just didn't know what to do. They were
Right.
kind of like, we don't even have any kind of idea of like how to deal with this. So they were sort of shut down about it, and let me kind of do my thing.
My introduction to you, and when I first heard about you, was I was in high school, and you had a show on ABC.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to say it was inspiring, and it was, but it was also like pre-inspiring. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
it was like I didn't really have the vocabulary to be inspired. It was more just confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is this? Why does this Asian girl have her own TV show?
Yeah.
And like, because this was years before what we have now.
Yeah.
With Crazy Rich Asians
Yeah.
and Always Be My Maybe, and but like before that, like there was All American Girl, and
Yeah.
like, how did that happen, and how did that show happen, and then how did you feel, and how did it go? Like,
Well, it was weird because it was a time when the television was having a lot of success with comedians becoming sitcom stars. So, of course, they have like Seinfeld was very big, and then Roseanne,
Tim Allen,
Tim Allen.
Ellen.
So many different, like, you know, people were getting, you know, hitting it big with that kind of programming. And so they were fiercely competitive with each other, and they all wanted a star that could be different. So there was a lot there that made sense to them financially to make an Asian American show, just because they had found a star that could do something different.
Did you feel pressure?
Yeah.
Or were you just kind of along for the ride, or like how did you?
No, I had a lot of pressure, but I didn't know exactly how I was supposed to handle it or what I was supposed to do with it. And at the time, this was right after the LA riots, so the Korean community were very defensive about how they were being portrayed in the media, and they didn't like my comedy specials. Also, I think it's because I was a woman. That was a big problem too. They just inherently thought that was offensive. So that was a really hard thing to deal with, you know, that kind of like non-support of a community that I wasn't speaking for because I wasn't really from that community, but I think the network didn't really know how to differentiate any of sort of Asian American from Asian to, like who identifies as what and who is this
Right.
show for. We needed that kind of representation.
Right.
Or we didn't really understand how much invisibility had affected how we sort of related to America or this idea of being American. Like a lot of Asian Americans at the time felt totally okay with not being seen or not seeing themselves because we'd never had.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like weird when we were started to. But then that was the year, 1994 was the year that Joy Luck Club came out too, and I think, and that was a huge success as well. So you would have thought that this would have meant we'd see more Asian Americans in the media, but we didn't.
Yeah, why did it take, why do you think it took another 20 something years
I think it's just
for that to click?
I think it's just social media finally gave us a place to really.
There's so many of us.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know.
Have you had that experience where there's been bonding over food, bonding over a shared eating experience, in a way that brought you closer to people or sort of bridged, sort of created a sense of community where maybe there was none, or
It is really exciting that people are really embracing all the different kinds of Asian food, and what I think is really heartwarming is when you would go into a place in Koreatown and they would have a framed picture of Anthony Bourdain, and it's really cute because it's usually these people are really hate white people or they're really suspicious of white people, but finally they learn to let this one guy in
right.
who really wasn't going to be shitty about anything, he wasn't going to be judgmental or freaked out.
right,
He was very-
Bourdain or Jonathan Gold,
Yeah,
basically,
or Andrew Zimmern, or
Yeah.
Jonathan Gold especially. I think probably Jonathan Gold first before anybody.
I thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is it's such a pleasure.
Such a
It
pleasure.
is such a pleasure to have followed you, from when I was younger, and just to be talking with you here now. And so
Yeah.
thanks
Wonderful.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
The incredible Maillard reaction of the outside, right?
Don't you dare.
It's very
Don't you
brown.
dare. None of that.
It's very brown
None
on the
of that
outside.
on
no,
my
but
show.
No, but it completely changes. That's what I'm saying. There's a real
We're
transformation.
editing that out.
That's fine. That's what it is, though. You're developing the flavors,
We're going to talk about the scientific reaction that turns things brown.
Yeah, sure. And delicious.